LockSport Roadshow. Please welcome members of Tool, LockSport International, SS Dev, and the Longhorn Lockpicking Club. Give it up.
All right.
We have lights.
We don't
got
have,
a lot of those.
Yeah.
Well, that's something at least.
Do we have a screen? There we do. All right.
Magic.
So first, because we're a little bit curious, has anyone out in the audience brought us anything fun that we can? I see some hands. That's good. This is great. We're really excited about this. So we all kind of rated some stuff that we thought was cool from our own collections and from the Tool collection and other places. And we were really hoping that people in the audience brought some cool stuff too. So we're very excited about that. And we're probably going to, throughout the panel, rotate people in and out because we have a lot of cool people that want to talk about some interesting stuff, and it'll be an experience. We haven't quite done it this large before. So
Yeah,
we'll
we have
see
one
how it
more
goes.
chair right here if there's a Tool member who's ready to, come on and keep talking with us.
Or
any LockSport member.
How about the Chinese lock expert?
Oh, yeah, right on.
we
So
go.
this is a perfect lead-in. Come on
Yeah.
up, come on up.
Come on up.
Yeah, bring it on up. So the Hope Conference, who's been, we're going to do this like keep the hands in the air kind of game. Is this your first Hope talk? First Hope Conference, right?
Yeah.
Who has been to more than one Hope? Who's been to more than two? Who's been to more than three? Who's been to more than four?
Whoa.
Who's been to more than five? Who's been to more than 6 Hope Conferences?
Shut up.
7? Really? This is the only hand I can still see, so you get the first audience drink. Come on up. There you go.
Woo!
But yeah, this is consistently one of our favorite events to attend because it's very freeform. Like, oh my God, it's holy shit, Squelch! I didn't even know that was you. Here, there you go.
Well, you didn't
Rock
see
and
whose
roll.
hand it was?
I couldn't see who that was, dude. I've got these McNuggets lights in my face.
Lockpicking 101 administrator here. It's a great resource for new pickers. Lockpicking101.com. Squelch, raise your hand.
Again.
Yep, there you go. All right.
So yeah, this is a place where the whole community really comes together to see really not just new stuff, but fun and unique stuff. The stuff that, it's a mix, you're welcome, man. It's a mix, I think, at Hope of stuff that people are like, I can't wait to show this to everyone. And some people, I think it's stuff like, would we ever get to show this anywhere else? It's just kind of quirky, odd. Like, who saw the talk this morning about just locks from overseas, right?
Amazing, amazing talk.
And that's the idea of this session. Hopefully it's not just the lockpickers cheering this whole time, and this morning it wasn't just lockpickers. It was people who said, I want to see unique things that I've just never seen before, and bring them up and bring them out, and you did an amazing job. We all are now like begging him to come to LockCon with us or ship us more locks from China, et cetera, et cetera.
Or both.
Or both, hopefully. And that's what this is going to all be about. This is just going to be show and tell of fun things, and it's a real pleasure to see friends that I don't get to see, like Doug. I think the last time I saw you was possibly on this exact stage. Did you make LockCon last year?
That's not true, but it's a good story. Yeah.
It would have been a better story if it was true.
Let's do
you,
this.
You need more whiskey too, sir. Pass that down, and then pass it back.
Let's go through intros. Why don't we start on the right?
Yes.
For those of you that saw the 3 o'clock talk that I did this, I'm going to introduce myself again. I'm Lucas. I'm 16, and this is my first everything, basically. This is my first convention. This is my first talk at a convention, everything like that, and this is pretty exciting.
Woo!
He's really humble. He's a super rock star, though, when it comes to his specialty, which is Chinese mechanical locks, and it was just such a joy to see that talk.
Yeah, that was really badass. I'm Deviant Olaf. I'm a guy, I do stuff, sometimes I'm good at it, and I need that bottle back.
Yes, the correct pronunciation is Olaf. Yeah. I'm Babak Javadi. I'm more of a behind-the-scenes person than anything else, but I was one of the co-founders of Tool in the US. Back in 2006, 10 years ago, this is actually, at Hope, the 10-year anniversary of the open organization of lockpickers as it exists in the United States today. And for that, we have Hope and all of you wonderful people to thank. So I just want to thank you for all of that. But it's been a really fun 10 years. It went by in a freaking blink. I still, even as I say it, can't believe it. So onward.
I'm Night Owl. This is actually my first time on stage anywhere.
What?
Yeah, seriously.
Whoa!
Oh yes, you're right.
Yeah.
I was emceeing earlier, so I don't know if that counts or not.
All the world's a stage.
Apparently.
Says Bernie.
Anyway, I'm just a guy who spends way too much time messing around with locks. And I really enjoy them, and I love sharing.
I think we're all a little way too much something in this room. Sometimes
yeah.
it's locks. Sometimes it's something else.
Hi, I'm Ray from the German Lockpicking Association, the SSDEF. It's a sports club of lockpicking.
One of the originals.
And we're only 10 years older than Tool or something.
Only.
I think it might be 1996 or 1997 that we were founded. I remember 1998, our first or second championships where we really did it as a sport championship,
I
lockpicking.
think you were even older than Tool Netherlands, correct?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I
so
think it's
you predate all of us.
It's the first lockpicking as a sport.
Yes.
Before that, lockpicking was a professional business for locksmiths and everything.
Right.
But I think SSDEF started it doing
I believe
it as
so.
sports.
Yeah,
Which
Stefan.
possibly has to do with German laws. It's easier as a sport club, but yeah, it worked out, and currently in Germany and everything.
Yeah, what a cool
lockpicking is
cool
accepted.
hack. My understanding of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, was that Stefan and a bunch of others really wanted to play with lockpicks, and at the time, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, why, how is this legitimate if you're not locksmiths? And he's like, oh, well, it's actually a sport.
Yeah,
See,
actually,
we're a sport club now, and then, oh, okay.
yeah, and
So-
it actually worked out quite well. They did a lot of press work also. They appeared in video TV shows, and people knew then that lockpicking isn't a strange criminal
Right,
skill.
it makes anything automatically more serious. Not that you'd want to do it, but it just makes it more serious. Like if you put the word sport in front of yarn knitting, or like just knitting, like, oh, I'm into sport knitting. You're like, oh, well, that's weird, but that sounds serious. You're putting in some effort, some time. Wow, all right.
Yeah, and it's not my first time at Hope. I think I spoke a few times about 3D printed handcuff keys and stuff like that.
And all sorts of other cool stuff.
Yeah, 2 years ago about electronic locks, and this year possibly again with newer ones.
Very good.
Yep, very good. My name's Doug Farr. I'm from LockSport International and Longhorn Lockpicking Club from Austin, Texas. Interestingly enough, we're also celebrating 10 years. So something happened 10 years ago that
Yep.
really initiated the kind of
The
lockpicking culture.
bumping white paper came out from Tool Netherlands, and a lot of us started watching videos online about this mysterious new technique that opens a bunch of locks, and I think that jump-started a lot of interest.
Yeah, I think it piqued a lot of people's interest. So, and we were also in attendance at the same Hope conference
Yep.
when Barry and Han came over from the Netherlands and gave some great talks. So yeah, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. If you're in Austin, Texas in October, we're having a big celebration. Just throwing that out there. So, yep, thank you.
And we're going to have more awesome people cycle through. I want to say one thing before we begin, just a fun little story and a prequel to this box of stuff that I have here. So we get a lot of interesting emails, as you might expect. And some time ago, and I'm stealing someone's thunder here, so I'm a little bit, I feel a little bit bad about that, but he's not here, so I don't mind that much.
Yeah, we owe Preston big for
yeah.
actually answering the email.
So Preston Thomas, in the DC chapter, he recently received an email that was, kind of some broken English and some things about like free lockpicks, and you're like, oh, what is this?
Yeah.
And
It looked like the kind of thing you would delete.
yeah, definitely, most people would delete it. But he pushed through. He's like, all right, well, let's see what this is. Let's see where it goes. And the short of it is that there was a seller on Amazon that was selling lockpicks and some other stuff, and they were using Amazon fulfillment. So they shipped like pallets and pallets of lockpicks to Amazon, and then were able to just do domestic shipping. Amazon, for those of you who don't know, doesn't officially allow the sale of lockpicks through their site. And for a number of years, this went unnoticed. At some point, someone noticed, and they very politely and firmly told him that he needed to get his picks the fuck out of there. And as it turns out, shipping cheap stuff across the sea that's really, really heavy kind of sucks. So he emailed us. He's like, do you want a lot of picks? We're like, well, the quality on these is questionable at best. We're not interested in buying any of these picks. He's like, no. Do you want free picks? We're like, okay, sure, we'll take some free picks. Like, do you want a donation receipt or anything? Because we're 501c3. He's like, no, we don't care about U.S. taxes. Just a thank you letter will be fine. I'm like, all right. So fast forward to about like a week later, and Preston had given him his work email, his work shipping address because, it'd be easier. And he's thinking like, oh, I'm going to get like a couple boxes of picks and it'll be fine. And then at the same time in another city, not so far away, Philadelphia, Lady Merlin was getting like just repeated phone calls from Preston, like at 8 a.m., just over and over and over. She's like, all right, what is this? So she wakes up, answers the phone. He's like, hey, so there's a lot of boxes showing up. They're sending us, I don't know how many they're sending us. They didn't tell me, but there's a lot of boxes showing up. And it took several days to sort it out with UPS to divert all these boxes to our storage in Philadelphia. And ultimately, I think there's still boxes coming in.
So many boxes.
The living room, the living room is full.
The living room of my old house, the tool headquarters, is fucking full of these boxes.
Of these picks, and they are of a quality that is commensurate with what we paid.
And we're prepared to pass that savings on to you.
But as people ask questions, and also for no reason in particular throughout the rest of this panel, we're going to throw these picks out into the audience. And I guarantee you that you're going to like them or your money back. So I'm gonna hand these out to the other panelists, and that's basically throw
if you
it.
get anything for any reason at all,
Right.
you just feel like it.
Just pause before you
It's
throw
like
it so
honking
people
in New
know
York.
that something
There's a reason
is
to do it,
flying.
but usually you don't need a reason to do it.
But anyways, that's what these are. We are not selling them because we're not happy with the quality. Just to be clear, if these were actually good quality, we'd try to generate revenue for the organization and for the community for it, but I can't in good conscience charge any money for this. We can spare a lot of sets. Yeah. So there we go. That's the backstory to that.
Someone almost has to want to leave this room without them.
Yeah. Without further ado, someone else should start talking.
Yeah. What are we going to show off? Who's got the first
thing?
hitter?
I think we should start with some audience contributions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Who's got stuff to bring?
I know I saw at least one hand out there.
Oh, Bernie.
Oh, all right.
There we go.
Oh.
GTE Telecom.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, let's see. Let's pull up the document camera.
This is a Western Electric, right? Yeah. All right.
We got any video? Perfect. Who knows what this is? Raise your hand. Someone all the way back there. You raise your hand. What is it? Not you. What is it? What is it? Thanks, jackass. What is it from?
Asshole.
There you go.
Yeah.
Does anyone know what kind of payphone?
Coin up.
I actually said it, you nonsense.
No.
Like, what the hell?
Coin up.
Ooh, who said it? I heard it right
Who
back
said
here.
that? Who said that?
Oh yeah. Throw them picks.
All right, stand up.
This is a good idea. Throwing sharp bits of metal is a really good idea. Oh, yeah. Just.
Do you mean the payphones that were brought into the Lockpick Village last year? No. Those actually are of a different design. This is from the older version when Western Electric actually manufactured their own locks.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
So
super uncommon.
these are really secure locks, as it turns out.
Tons of false gates. Look at that.
Yeah, they're really nicely done. Bernie, my understanding is that they were decommissioning a building, and you were lucky enough to harvest these locks. No, that's another story. This is
Okay,
different.
different one.
Okay, all right.
No, I acquired these from a company 5
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And I commissioned someone to grind off all the rivets. So these are basically cutaway Western Electric 30C locks.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Actually see, take off the wire, be careful, it could explode
Yeah.
on you. You can see the operating mechanism inside, which is really worth examining.
This is just wire. No, this isn't wire. This is zip tie.
That's the wrong wire.
I know. I want to get the keys off before I have known how to take a lock apart, jackass. Although to be fair, I would take the first. This is if you want to get in. I'll take your cutters. If you want to get into like lock collecting and lock disassembly, the general rule is you buy 4 of any interesting lock you find, because the first one you cut apart, you have a strong chance of deeving it, where everything just kind of, and you're like, whoa, all right, so these parts have springs on this side, got it. Then you cut the second one apart really carefully using what you've learned. And then the third one is what you actually use for like testing, like exploits if you're building a tool or what have you. And the fourth one you keep really nice.
In practice, that works out too. First, Dave does it, and then I look at what he's done, and I actually
Like
learn
Bobak
some
does it
stuff.
nicely.
Then I do it, and then we both learn some stuff. Yeah, there you go. So these are actually really cool. If anyone's interested in just difficult or interesting locks, if you obtain some payphone locks, they're very, very, very difficult to pick. I haven't personally run into anyone who's successfully picked them, and that has a lot to do with what you'll see here. If we can get the front panel off. Oh, just use the flathead. You're gonna chip.
Yeah, speak for yourself on not being able to pick those, Bobak.
You've picked this?
No, the new. I guess at some point they switched from that lever style lock to a Medico lock, so a little more.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was with the introduction of the Fortress phones that they switched to Medico biaxials in the 1980s or so.
Do you have any reasoning on why they switched? Was it a cost-saving measure?
I believe it was also the fact that at that time they were transitioning the manufacturing away to independent companies, and so being able to source parts from multiple places took some of the load off their manufacturing arm.
You are? Your hand's in a little bit of a shadow.
Oh, there's like a thing underneath it?
That's the drill plate.
Oh.
That's the anti-drill plate
Wow.
over here.
Hold on, we're gonna
There's a
pry
couple
this
of
off
those.
here.
So these are a lever style, or you might call it a Chubb style key. This is not a pin tumbler system that was in use at this time here in this lock. This is not. You're not going to like pick them with these picks. I mean, if you want, we used to, actually, it's funny. We used to always say, no, never stick your like nice lock picks into anything that's not pin tumbler, like a warded lock or a lever lock. You might hurt the picks. This might be ideal if you want to really fuck with these picks.
So the first rule, just in case, anytime you disassemble a lock, is do it very slowly and assume that there's lots of little tiny springs in there that are about to fly out, just in case. If you're wrong, nothing happens. But if you're right, you've not lost a bunch of little tiny springs.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point that someone just said. You can always take like small shit apart in a bag if you're worried about losing parts.
So, well, he's got a feel already.
All right. So yeah, you can see. You want to talk about the lever pack and everything in there?
This is a well, I don't know if this one's a floating lever pack or not. It's kind of hard to tell, but the short of it is for what kind of cargo they were protecting, which is just a bunch of coins. Phone companies put a lot of work into protecting that coin box, and I think the goal really was they knew that people were people who wanted money because they have no other resort. They're gonna hit it pretty hard, so they just wanted to make the target so hard that you just kind of give up, and I think they were fairly successful in that. I don't see a whole lot of payphones that have been successfully broken open. Truth.
Yeah, we should explain for some members of the audience, a payphone was a telephonic device out in public, if you can believe it, that took metal tokens of some kind and connected you up to this hard-lined. It was like your cell phone, but very featureless. There were almost no apps for it. Like,
how did they keep people from walking away with it? Was it tethered in some way?
well, yes, it was mounted to these big poles inside of large freestanding urinals. So we're getting some complaints. It's a little hard to see. Are you seeing any of the? Can you see the camera up there or no? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Well. Oh, like.
No, I got it.
This is a hacker flashlight, so you know it's going to instantly be too bright and wash everything out.
No, it works.
All right. So this is how many? There's like 6. No, there's way more than 6. There's about 8 levers in this lever pack. Now, when it was assembled up, let's see here. So you'd have basically this U-shaped piece of metal. This is the bolt work, and that bolt wants to fall this direction. It wants to move inward when you turn the key. That's only going to do that if each one of these levers pushes up to just the right amount to actually expose a gate. And I want to not deave this too hard here. If I can I want to get this copper plate out of the way. This is basically just, this would be a washer, and you'll have these separating the levers so they can travel more easily. So there's one of your gates, right? So that would actually, when the key comes around, the different cuts on the key are coming around into the lever pack underneath, probably from right about here, I would say. And they're going to come around and actually push in on the levers. You're essentially coming under like this. Wow.
Can you show the false
there's
notches
so many
too?
counter springs and everything else.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's easy to see on the camera, but there we go. In the lever
it would
pack,
come up like that.
there's a long gate, which is the true gate, and then there's these little false notches. Does everyone see the false notches? Yeah. And that's designed specifically to defeat and to make more difficult picking the lock.
Because picking this picking a Chubb lock, a lever lock, lock picking is like any other hacking, right? You put stress on the system and make it behave incorrectly and try to see what falls out of it. So you'd reach in and try to grab that bolt work and jam it into the lever pack. Just jam it in and then start pushing the levers. But you can't just jam the bolt into the levers if they have all these false teeth.
This lock, in my opinion, is considerably more difficult to pick than most safe deposit box locks. It makes some sense because safe deposit boxes are generally protected by a really big, heavy door as well. But it's pretty darn good. They don't make them like they used to. No, they don't. No, they don't.
No.
What do we got next? Anything else?
By the way, thank you to Bernie.
Like
You have more of these, right?
To Bernie, thank you. Sir, would you mind at the microphone telling us a little bit about this lock?
Hi. I don't know too much about it. I got it at an antique store.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's a great start.
Yeah.
Oh, it's railroad lock. So the question on stage is, what company is it by? That says, what did you say? Schleemaker. All right. So it sounds like Squelch knows it. All I can see is Pound New York City Mark. I don't know.
We're going to pass this down and see if anyone else recognizes anything in particular about it.
Some of the most interesting places you will still see in modern use, really heavy duty, like what you'd think of as almost looking like antique locks, are railroad yards. How many people take, we're back in the Northeast. I'm from this area. I moved way the hell out west for reasons passing understanding. But if you take transit, how many people have seen big ass railroad locks at this? Yeah, they're still out there. They're still hanging off of a lot of shit.
Can you see any marks?
Yeah, it looks like the first bit is a little bit rubbed out, but it's M. Edwards Company, Syracuse, New York, USA. Actually, we should get this on camera.
Yep.
So this lock has this little spring-loaded cover on it, which covers up the keyway. And because these are, I think, mostly used to lock up signal boxes and other railroad equipment, which is often outside. So this was sort of a form of weatherproofing, and also just to help prevent people from being able to pick it easily. But if you've... There we go. Still working pretty nicely, too.
Wow. Very groovy.
This is in great condition.
So I guess the key here is not very many moving parts on these locks designed to last for a very long time in harsh weather conditions.
Yeah, frequently. I believe that may either be a very simple lever mechanism or a warded mechanism. I'm having a bit of trouble telling from the key, but it looks like a worded key to me.
Yeah.
The chain makes it really fun to turn the key because it just keeps getting twisted up.
It's really interesting when you go, like, does anybody ever go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania? There's this antique lock show every year. If you're into antique locks, there's a huge community behind this. And I love locks, but
there's a huge community of people who just collect and don't pick locks.
Yeah,
which to us sounded crazy, right?
Right.
It's like back in the day when I had hair, and I went to a barber. Like he would collect, he would collect guns, but not actually shoot them. Like he had hundreds. Like he would show me, and hey, I just bought this. Look at that beautiful thing in this catalog that I just bought. And he never would shoot any of them. So yeah, there's people who collect locks that. Maybe. It's a good idea. That's a good idea.
The store that I was at had, it was a community of just people selling their junk, and this guy had a huge display case of locks, and they were all different types. But I heard the guy was on his way out, but I don't know what they did with them after. But they're all gone now.
I think it's a really great piece. What I like about it is that it's actually an old lock. There's a lot of replica locks that you'll find that look very similar, but are just recreations, which are fine if you just want it to look interesting. But that looks like it has some history behind it.
Yeah,
and,
I like that it has a really satisfying click.
It has an extremely satisfying click. That is for sure.
Yeah, it'll also, if you're into this kind of stuff, it will start to astound you how many people in the community, they look like they're selling their locks, but they're really not selling their locks. They do not want to give them up. They have these whole tables, and you're like, oh, really? How much for this one? They're like, oh, I didn't expect anyone to ask that. $200. And you're like, it doesn't even have a key. They're like, I see that shirt. I know what you want it for. No, it's fine. Yeah. Any others from the audience, or are we going to pull one of ours here?
I have one.
Yeah.
Well, let's wait.
If someone has another mechanical one.
If we have any physical stuff, we're going to go through that stuff first.
I think we've got one more coming down the aisle here.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
pass it up and then tell us a story as we're getting on camera.
We're going to go through them.
It's
yeah, use the mic.
We have someone who knows a little bit about these.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I was tired of my shed lock just freezing up one winter.
Can I have
Costco
one?
was selling those locks 4 in a package, and they promptly froze up as well. So I have one I gave away. Other people don't even care about them. I just figured since there was no keyhole, what would be the best way? That one I programmed so if you go down 4 times, that'll open.
Down 4 times? I was trying the Konami code.
Yeah. How is this not up, up, down, down, left, right, left, right?
You can program it any way you want. Mm-hmm. So I reprogrammed that one. The other one that's in the package it was just the 4th one that nobody wanted. So I never even touched that one. If you wish to destroy them, do whatever you wish. Be my guest.
We're curious. Can we get a quick show of hands who is not familiar with this lock? Interesting.
That's quite a few.
Ta-da.
That's quite a few.
Who has never seen the inside of this lock?
Be my guest.
Well, we actually
take a bit of
have
pleasure.
Yeah.
diagrams.
We do. I'm going to try to
Courtesy
pull
of one of
Michael
Ray's
Hubler,
co-members.
Yeah, Michael Hübler from the Munich LockSports group did a paper on it. It's on the Tool website. And he did a flash software emulating the inner workings, so you can move the slider and see what rotates inside.
Which we are about to show you.
So, are you David trying to start it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk about it a little in the time.
Please.
It's actually a very nice lock because it's basically a mechanical hash function. That's something your hacker should understand. And it hashes your input to an internal state. You can start moving the...
So the button that we are pressing on the outside, everything you see in red, those are a carriage of pegs that are all married together and mated to that button.
So imagine that red outline is a solid plate, and each one of those red circles is a peg extending out into some wheels.
And every time you press, it pushes against 3 of the wheels. and they will all turn dependent on the direction of your press and the position they were in when the press came.
So if you notate the position of the blue circle and the blue arrows, when they are lined up, the lock is in the open position.
So the funny thing is you can program an immediate, as long as you want sequence to it, and it will open with this sequence again. So there's no limit on the length of the sequence, but it's hashed. The hash has 7,500 different states, or 7,501 because there's a 0 state of no move. So there's 7,500 different codes, which means there's an indefinite number of additional sequences for any sequence you program. So if you program it to up, up, down, left, there's an indefinite number of longer and possibly even shorter sequences reaching the same state. But still it's a quite good, it's a $7 to $10 lock. And given that scale, it's very good because it's a combination lock with 7,500 combinations, and they're much harder to try through than a normal combination lock. Basically, you need a software telling you the optimum 7,500 codes, and you have to reset it every time and enter the code new. While with a normal lock, you just rotate one more. So trying this through is actually very difficult. Our Munich group member built a special tool to pick this lock. And that's actually what you need the software for, because the tool works by measuring how far you can pull out the shackle.
Because if you get some of the gears in the right position, the shackle will have a little bit of travel.
Like
it's
fraction
like
of a millimeter.
Like it's a micrometer.
The scale is hundreds of millimeters. So it's turning around for 1 millimeter one time, and you read hundreds of a millimeter. And if you got one wheel right, it's like 300s or 500s better. And you can't turn the individual 4 wheels, of course. But using the software, you can find a sequence which reaches the same state except for one wheel turned differently. And this way you can turn each wheel differently, independently of the others. So you try out wheel by wheel, find the gate, and so you can open this lock in, like we did the competition once, so like 20 minutes if you're lucky. So it's actually quite good. And it's very, very
For a
fun.
$9 lock, it's pretty amazing.
For a combination lock, I really would recommend this for your locker at high school or something. It's
or gym.
Yeah.
Just something where you don't have to worry too much about hammers and pry bars.
Yeah, it's not super robust against physical attack, but also, and by the way, Night Owl was kind enough to help me out with my up, up, down, down, left, right, so we've got that going on now.
So satisfying.
But as fun as that is, if you were watching us operate these, let's say you spoiled the combination in some manner. You're like, oh, I need to. What do you like? How do you reset it? Well, squeezing in on the shackle snaps everything to 0, which is actually kind of neat in terms of if maybe people like in this room are super privacy conscious, right? Like you put this on your locker, and you just go like up, up, and you leave, go away, do whatever you're doing, come back later and go down, down, left, right, and if it works. Yay. If it doesn't, like somebody touched the lock, or they like touched it and reset it or something. Now, if that happens once, somebody bumped into your lock. If it happens every freaking day, get them Russian visas ready. Like, thank you for bringing that. Have an awesomely bad pick kit. So all right, there were a couple of good follow-up questions. The full name is stupid. This is called the speed dial, which is stupid because nothing is dialed in the operation of this lock at all. The model number is the 1500i, I believe.
Would you like your locks back?
ID.
What was it?
1500 ID.
ID.
Oh.
Okay.
Thank you for these locks that we don't know the combo to.
Yeah.
Oh, you said it's down 4 times. Okay.
Yeah, that one's down 4 times. The other
this
one's it's
Konami.
inside the packaging.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we don't, I have
we
one of
call
those
them the
tools.
hash lock.
Yep.
And yes, there's no key on the back. There's a little release switch. There's a switch for reprogramming, and you can only flip the switch up if the lock is in an open state.
No, it can't be shimmed.
Oh yeah, I've seen plenty of them. They're like all over my high school. Like they're very popular.
Wow.
And I actually recommend that lock to whoever asks me like what the best lock is, because there's no use the Master 1500 is pretty easy to crack open.
Do your friends know you as the lock expert?
Yes, and they always blame me.
Is that good or bad in your high school?
Kind of bad, because they always blame me when something goes missing.
Who has experiences with being blamed for stupid shit that they didn't do? Hey, there we go.
right, so Dark Sim.
5 was not my fault.
So we have Dark Sim 905. So Dark Sim is actually part of the TSA keys talk, which is going to be happening later.
Oh,
this,
yeah.
I hope. And do you want to jump on a mic and rock it like a boss and tell us about what you got here?
So the high share one that you have there, I don't believe I have a control key. It's just a regular key. I don't really know much else about it other than it's a Medico core. I don't know the specifics. And that's a lock that you can be very violent with if you don't have a weapon hand.
Let me tell you something about this lock. It's not made of plastic. it's a little heavy. It's a little
This
dense.
is serious business.
Yeah.
5 pounds. Good Lord. Now, is
For
this...
those who don't know the kind of like name of that lock or what it's known by, it's people just generally just call it the high shear lock. And it's usually used in government installations protecting stuff.
Yeah, this is a lock that was designed specifically for the Department of Defense. From time to time, they basically tell a couple of their, trusted manufacturers, and they say, hey, we're releasing this bid. We need a lock to do this, and then they make just a tank of a lock. And normal locks are designed to resist like picking and crowbars and bolt cutters and stuff like that. This is in a different category of lock. These locks resist munitions. What is this? This is a different lock, I believe. I think we're getting to that. But the sister to this from a different company is who has an 833 up here? Anyone? No S&G?
I don't think any of us could carry one.
Yeah. So
the 831, 833.
Yeah.
I believe there are 831s for sale at the Security Snobs booth. So anyone who wants to see that, stop by their booth tomorrow while they're open.
Yeah.
You'll see another lock that looks about this size, shape, and weight,
same composition.
made by a company called Sargent and Greenleaf. And all of these locks are of they have so many hardened ceramic inserts in them to defeat grinding from all sorts of different attacks. They're rated against cryogenic attacks, so even if you submerge the whole thing in liquid nitrogen somehow, the material is not so brittle that it easily breaks. They're ridiculously strong.
Yeah, they're resistant to metal, oxidizing flames. So, an oxy torch is not going to cut through correctly. It's well thought out. Max wants to test these out. Yeah, if you get us a freaking nice plasma cutter, man.
They are. You can get them. So this one you can probably get comparatively cheap because it no longer meets the current DoD standard. They revise it every few years or so. But even then, how much was this one?
I don't remember. I bought it a while ago off of key picking. I want to say, I don't remember, to be honest.
Over
it's been
under
a couple
$100,
years.
do you know?
It was probably over 100.
I want to say over 100.
Yeah. So new these locks cost our fine government about $1,100, and you can buy it for the same low price if you like, but they have some cost.
That's baller. Now, talk to us. What's that?
Real quick. So when you come across a lock that was used in an official capacity,
Oh yeah, we got to show the keys.
I guess oftentimes by reversing engineer the way the lock was pinned, and if you're able to reproduce the key, then it doesn't really matter how robust the lock is. If they're using the same key, if they're keyed the same way, right?
We're trying to get the words to crisp up here on the key, because it is a fun key, because on it, any focus? Oh, yeah, there we go. What does it say? U.S. military, do not duplicate.
Right. So it's entirely possible that all of these locks in the same facility have been keyed the same way. So getting your hands on one could potentially open the keys, you would have access to the entire facility.
It's not just standard tooth bitting. These are cross-cut bitting cuts. If you're not familiar with the Medico, if your talk, you mentioned pin rotation, in Medico. That's what this is.
Let me tell you though, as pick resistant as these locks are, bullets are even more pick resistant. So I would caution against trying to pick one of these in the field.
Yeah. Oh, now this is interesting. Yet again with a lever lock that we have, but this is a push style operation.
You're
Yes?
blurry again. You're blurry again.
All right.
I do not have the key for that one. I was trying to open that with Matt from Searpick downstairs, and we weren't able to get it open. I don't know if we need to clean it up a bit with Max's ultrasonic cleaner.
So yeah, this slot, you know where in a city like New York, you know where the best possible chance you have of seeing one of these locks? If you find an old high-rise that had the mail like slots, those clear paneled mail, the mailbox in the lobby, if they have an old install that they usually deprecated, they don't use them anymore, but if they have the original lock, it may be one of these style of lock. That's the only place I've seen them in recent memory. And the key, as you can see, it's like just a slot. This is you push the key straight in, and it engages levers and pops.
Here's a push style lock. And am I on camera?
Yeah.
All right. Probably upside down.
No. All right.
Yeah, sideways, doesn't matter. So here's the key that was handmade by a gentleman in Colombia, who we will talk about later. And to operate it, once you insert the key, you literally, it's a little bit finicky here. Let's see if I can get it to go. Oh, of course, now we got demo effect.
Yeah. You can try
Try the Corbin.
Yeah, so when you push this forward and you rotate, the whole shackle rotates with it. So that's what we mean when we say a push lock. I don't know what the official name is, but push lock makes enough sense for us.
I believe Master Lock makes a modern version of them for ADA use.
Really?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yes.
I always thought that push literally meant just that you didn't rotate it like on that Excel sheet. You just push straight into the shack and you don't turn it at all.
So that's the question is, does push lock is a
There's
made-up term.
Yeah, there's no official term as far, there might be, but we don't know it. So yeah, I would also call what you call a push lock, so I guess we'd have to be more clear. Thank you.
Yeah, in many cases you'll often sometimes even hear the term pump lock when you're engaging with a mechanism that is, facing straight at the key, and you're not turning the key in the operation. Very cool. Do you remember, was this from the same source, Darkson?
I think I got off of eBay, different source.
eBay, right on. There was a question, Jaguar was a question?
I see it says 6 lever on the front. Is there any relation with a traditional lever lock, or?
Has anyone cut one of these apart? I've never wanted to.
I haven't cut one apart myself, but I have seen people who have. It is actually essentially a traditional lever mechanism. It's just that instead of having the key being inserted into a hole in the face and then turned to engage the levers, the bitting essentially of the key is on the flat front of the key, and it is just pushed in directly into the levers.
Yeah, I mean, it
So
looks
that
kind of
little,
like your
that little
hand,
slot
like
that you see there
like that.
is just a flat channel that the key rides into, and the tip of the key is where the cuts to engage the levers are, instead of having it rotated into that position.
Get that back to you.
They're also called pancake locks.
Yes.
Pancake lock.
Although that term is also applied to similar designs of locks that have the keyway in the face.
This is called this lock. This book. In Germany
What was
called
that term? Concave lock, did you say?
Pancake.
Pancake.
Pancake lock.
I think what would be good right now is if we went down, and we all brought a bunch of cool stuff as well. Do we want to show all one thing each and see what we got? Yes.
Mike. Yeah.
Got a question about the military lock.
Oh, please.
It said patent pending on it. What is it actually protecting if it's a medical core?
So if anyone's an IP lawyer, you probably shouldn't admit it here because you might get shit thrown at you because it's hope. But those who know patent law, like Tool, we went through the process of trying to copyright a key we made just so we could release it and make sure no one could produce it. But things are patent pending for. I mean, somebody else who is a law talking person is Alex in this room. Like patent pending is a very common term. It's just part of the patenting process. Many things are quote patent pending when they're in production.
Deviant, can I answer the question about that lock in particular?
Yeah, answer that question, please.
All right, so that lock was designed in 1983 by Lagarde. Lagarde makes safe locks.
Really shitty safe locks.
Yeah, but Highshare and Lagarde were in Torrance, California, in the same city, and Highshare makes exploding bolts for cockpits. If any of you know that company, so they make a lot of military stuff from the rocket age. So they said, yeah, we can make your big heavy padlock, and even though it's just a medical core, the entire assembly itself, the way it rotated and the way it had a sliding bolt versus a shackle, that's what they were patenting. And they stopped using it within 2 years because the padlock was so heavy, the doors that were securing would sag. so they said, you know what, we're going to go back to the 831, which only weighs 3 pounds, versus the LK, that's the LK 1200 model. And so those are on eBay now for $100 to $300. Very, very cool lock. So.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let,
It is disturbing that our government was securing high important shit with a door that couldn't withstand 5 pounds.
lowest bidder, what do you want? Let's do a little lightning round of sorts. Doug, do you have any fun stuff that you want to talk about? Do you want to use the document camera or?
Sure. Here, pass this down.
Just hop in my chair.
Yeah.
It's very short.
Okay.
So, you know, back to this finding locks that are being used in an official capacity. On eBay for about $10, this is an ABIS-style padlock. It says property of New York City Housing Authority on it.
Really?
Yes.
Underneath. Can you zoom in on that?
Underneath the sticker.
Yeah, sorry, the sticker. You can see the NYC HA. There's another one, right? So, like I was trying to mention this earlier. You know, a lot of times these locks are keyed in either a master key system or in a way that they're exactly the same, right?
Howard and I are going to talk about that on Sunday.
So yeah, just a little preview. I mean, if it's a master key system, you can go through the process and find the master key yourself. And this is a very well-known methodology, first publicized by Matt Blaze in an article 15 or so years ago. But again, you know, this is a situation where you can have a very robust lock, but if you have access to the lock itself, you know, you can thwart the system. So.
And they're key to like.
Yeah.
But by thwart the system, you mean to decode, to disassemble a lock, decode it, and originate a key?
Correct.
Now, there's one other interesting thing about this lock, which is a lot of people in the LockSport community have these locks because you can buy them for $10 generally on eBay from the factory. The factory literally created an eBay account specifically to sell these off because they had a production overrun or something with the contract fell through or whatever it was that they got stuck with thousands of these things and they just want them gone.
They're making room for the new model year. Everything must go.
Right on. Thank you, Doug.
Ray, would you like a camera access?
I think I'll move over to the camera.
Okay. How easy are they to pick? That is the question on the table.
They are not super easy. They
nice
do
challenge.
include, it is. They do include a lot of pick-resistant pins, mostly spool pins, because it is a lock made by Oddities, and they really like putting spool pins in there.
It is a traditional pin tumbler lock, so it's you know, like oftentimes the manufacturers put in these pick resistance or anti-picking pins, but for a lot of us it just makes it, you know, a little more of a challenge, right?
All right, what do we got, Ray?
Yeah, as people remember possibly from last year, I'm into electronic locks in the last few months. This is a master lock, which is a very simple digital lock, which we had 2 years ago. Something coming up very much, I would say, in the last year or something is Bluetooth-enabled locks. So there's a lot of Kickstarters and Chinese companies and stuff bringing out Bluetooth-enabled locks. I have 2 here.
This is the top
This is
of the screen.
Oh, okay, yeah. The No Key, which is a Kickstarter project, or it was a Kickstarter project. It turned out quite into a successful commercial product. You can buy it in some stores nowadays. And something similar from the Master Lock company. Both of these locks are Bluetooth low energy enabled. So they connect to your mobile phone. You have an app on your mobile phone where you can manage the lock. And you, if you open the lock or want to open the lock connects to your phone, and the phone says some code to the lock and it opens. So if you're near your lock, you can open it. In the app, you can choose if it works automatically, which means if you're nearby your lock, anybody can open your lock. Be careful at high school. And you can also switch the mode in a way that you have to press a button in the app. So this is quite an, I don't know if it's really useful, but for tech geeks, of course, it's a nice idea. The thing, of course, is that if you have followed tech talks on hacker conferences, Bluetooth low energy is not necessarily the most secure technology. And possibly Android apps also aren't. So we looked a little. Who would use a Bluetooth lock was the question.
Use, not abuse. Not abuse.
Yeah, it depends on the application. So there's a lot of, I think I'll talk about the real attacks a little later. First, some more stuff about mechanics. One thing we already learned in this lock here is that it's important that the mechanical or electromechanical parts cannot be manipulated from the outside. This lock here we opened with a magnet, if you remember, by moving it in some way around. The master lock company has changed the design after we told them very little. Trying to get the inside. So this is a mechanism which is quite...
Where's the light?
Which is basically what happens inside. So there's a motor here, and if the app says the electronic open the lock, it rotates this motor here, and the motor moves this. Can you see this other part?
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. There's a metal part here which is blocking the opening, and if the motor rotates, it's moved in a position that you can open the lock by this part moving in there. So after telling them about our magnet, they put in this metal part here to shield the motor. And actually, I haven't talked to them again after that, and they haven't talked to us again. I just, for the moment, want to say so much they should have.
Is there an upcoming talk?
And I don't think about this magnetic attack, but we will talk to them and possibly they can improve it a little. It's harder, but yeah, if you know what you're doing, I wouldn't trust it completely. That's different with the Noke, or the no key. We tried it, and we used the same methods we proposed 2 years ago, opened it, drilled a hole, looked inside how the things are moving, and we realized there's a main difference. The locking part in this lock is also magnetic. So this part which is rotated by the motor also gets attracted by our magnet, and that jams the whole thing. So if you try to move the magnet and move the motor, the locking part also is attracted, locks it. So this lock is, I'm not sure if it's impossible to open using magnetic fields. That would be, nobody would say that. But it's not that easy. We didn't manage to do it.
More difficult.
We didn't manage to do it, so it's not this easy, oh, I move the magnet and it's open attack. So actually, from the mechanical view and also from the engineering, this lock is quite nice. From the Bluetooth low energy aspect, they are working on it. We did a vendor notification of our findings, which I think I will talk later when we have some more mechanical here, so we don't have an electronic overload. But basically, what you do with these electronic locks is you have many attack vectors. So one thing, you can attack the app by listening to its communication to the server. It's a TLS encrypted communication. It's your phone. You can man-in-the-middle it. You can install a fake certificate. You can install a man-in-the-middle proxy on your wireless LAN, and you can read what it's talking. That's something they didn't really recognize in the sharing feature, because you can share the lock with others, and they transfer things there which shouldn't possibly. The other thing is you can change the app, of course, yourself. So if the app has some control, like checking if the time is the right time to open, then the app is not the place to check that. You could build your own fake app. So this is another aspect. Then, of course, you can still dump firmware and analyze the firmware to find stuff. And, of course, you can attack the Bluetooth low energy. Because I think there's a talk on the internet called "With low energy comes low security." And that's true, because they reduce the options for encryption in Bluetooth LE a little. So you can build a Bluetooth sniffer from a dev board. And as I said, I'll talk in the second part a little bit about what we found on the Naux there, without disclosing too much, because they're still working on it.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Right on, Ray.
I believe that lock only has a ball bearing going in one side of the shack.
Yeah, actually, that's right. He was...
The comment was, Max believes there's a ball bearing that only goes into one side of the shackle for people in the back who couldn't hear.
Yeah, so it's locking only on one side, where all modern locks usually lock on two sides due to mechanical. We talked to them about that also, and we had a prototype from them which was locking on both sides. They told us they changed it because of water resistance, because on the if you open the shackle and there's a hole, water can come in there. And now it's completely closed on the side where the shackle completely goes out, and it's sometimes sealed on the other side. The shackle got thicker, so I think it's not a real weakness. If you put a lot of force, I think it will come out, or it will bend or whatever. But for normal use, like on your locker or whatever, this is not a problem.
For the target market, it's sufficient.
If you compare it, for example, here you see it's a little stronger, and I don't think that's a big problem. Of course, it would be nicer to lock on both sides, but I see the trade-off of water resistance. They want to use it outside, so that's the reason. Any other questions for the Bluetooth things?
Yeah, what's the time they're rating the battery life in? Are they doing that in years or decades or?
They're talking about a year or something like that. Both of these locks use normal batteries, so they're not like USB charged or anything. There are different companies who have USB charged ones. They both have an option that you can emergency put in a battery. So here I can remove this plate, and I can't do it now with my fingers, but there are two contacts, so you can hold up a second battery to emergency power it if your battery really ran out. And the same is on the master lock. So they thought about it, and mine hasn't run out yet, so it might be actually really a year. Another question? Yeah, so I think we go to the mechanicals first.
Thank you. That's all right.
All right, thank you, Ray.
We're going to switch to this document camera. So if we can see if AV can throw the switch, so to speak. There we go.
Okay. Can everyone see this? I can't actually see what I'm showing you, so. Oh, party fell.
Was that the whiskey?
No. You're safe. So. All right. This is made by a company called Fichet. If you are from France, anyone? No? Okay. As far as I know, it doesn't have a huge amount of market share outside of France, but they have a reputation for doing some really incredibly intricate and very unusual mechanical designs. And the funny thing is, I actually got this off of the door to one of my old apartments. Someone had left it behind probably sometime in the early 1980s. And we only had the one key, and I took it to a couple of locksmiths, and the only one who admitted to having ever serviced them, in fact, that's his name stamped on the bow, refused to cut me a new key for it. Because he said, you should just take that thing out. They're unreliable. Because apparently, they are the tolerances are so fine in some of these that if any sort of oil or moisture is introduced and then some dust enters the lock, it can actually cause the internal components to bind up. So, let's see.
Oh.
So this whole thing is just an anti-drill plate. You can see that several layers. And so what happens when you insert this key, and notice all 4 of these surfaces are cut. So what's happening is there is one of these sidebars set on two springs that stick out of the sides into these little notches here and here. Hopefully that's clear. I'm having a hard time telling. Anyway.
That stuff just falls out of it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So if I take this...
So does that make sense? So there's two notches on the side for the sidebar. In order for it to rotate, the sidebars in the cylinder must be allowed to retract. So they're spring-loaded, they're biased outward, and when you put in the key, those sidebars are going to try to push in on the lock. With the correct key, there's a recess that they can fall into. With the incorrect key, those sidebars will not retract, and so the cylinder will not turn.
Exactly. So right here, the key isn't inserted. And as I insert it, you can see each lever in turn rotating until finally they're all in the correct position where that main deepest notch is. And each of these has several false gates, those shallower notches, to work against any picking attempt, much like the Western Electric payphone lock that Bernie brought us earlier.
There's a zoom function.
Now, these were very popular briefly in the 1980s, and then they very quickly fell out of popularity, mostly because the metal used to make these sidebars and the metal used to make these wafers, there's a big difference in the hardness of the metals, so that it was discovered that someone with a hardened steel key could just insert it, stick a big lever through the bow,
cheater bar of some kind,
and crank it around.
And the sidebars would just crush the lever packs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just cut a new gate, basically, in every single lever. Or just mangle the entire interior of your very expensive French lock.
Now, that lock may not be very resistant to physical attack, but because of its sophistication and resistance to manipulation, it would serve still as a very good seal for tamper detection. So if you walk up to your door and there's a big old hole where the lock was and there's parts missing, maybe there's someone there. But
just maybe.
Thank you. So I'm going to take a quick vote because I've got a couple of things. I want to keep this moving.
Is this fun so far, by the way?
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to name 3 categories, and at the end, I'm going to ask for a vote by hands. So I have Polish high-security cylinder, handmade Colombian bathroom lock, or very advanced, high-quality German puzzle lock. So you got some hard choices there. So we have Polish high-security cylinder, handmade Colombian bathroom lock, or German puzzle lock. So Polish high-security lock. All right, not a whole lot. I think
we
we've
have to
already,
make sound because we can't see anything.
No, I can see. I can see.
All right. I just want to move the audience up. Come on.
Then we have, I keep forgetting,
bathroom.
Colombian handmade bathroom lock. All right. All right. It's coin operated, by the way. And then we have German puzzle lock, which, shit.
I think that might, all right.
All right, tiebreaker.
Instant
so
runoff
coin
voting.
operated, handmade Colombian bathroom lock, or very cool German puzzle lock. So first, Colombian bathroom lock. And the puzzle lock? All right, we're going to start with the bathroom lock, and the next round we're going to do the puzzle lock. How's that?
All right.
Is that fair? All right. There's a white box somewhere. Where is it? Right here? Yes, that.
Now, whoever did the phone descriptions got to explain what a pay toilet is to the young crowd.
Oh. Yeah, Dave, you want to talk about that while I unpack this?
Yeah. Back in the 70s, there was this very misguided series of social process philosophies, including the broken windows theory and other things that made people think if you valued your community and behaved a certain way and very buttoned-down behavior in your community, it would be better for everyone. And we would all keep wearing thin ties from the 60s and Mad Men-style thick glasses and, just be a fine, upstanding citizenry. Part of this philosophy involved pay toilets, based on the wildly mistaken belief that if a citizen has a financial investment in part of their daily routine, they would take better care of that element in society. So by paying to use a toilet in public, and seriously, old heads in the room, these were fucking everywhere, right? There were a lot of pay toilets out there. You see them occasionally overseas now. You don't see them in the US anymore. But the idea was, citizens will consider this a valued commodity, and if you got money, skin in the game, people will take better. No, they were defaced and vandalized, and people just made a complete outcry about them. The main thing that crushed them, and this is score one for non-gender specific bathrooms, because of genderized bathrooms, women were forced to pay to both go number one and number two, and that's what ultimately killed them. They were very sexist because guys didn't really need to sit down. But you don't see paid toilets anymore, and more you're not seeing gender bathrooms, so score one for that.
There's one more important reason why women might have to use the facilities, and that is that once a month they have to deal with something that we don't. So they're triple screwed by that system.
So
it sucks, man, it sucks.
Yeah, it does.
You talk about biohacking, right? Biohacking for the win. If you don't want to deal with that.
I won that coin flip. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So you're going to, oh man, I used to have the pictures of him and all this. You're going to just have to tell the story, I think, right?
You don't have the photos?
I wonder if I do. I'm going to dig through my slides for a second, but go ahead and start talking.
All right, so we were at we won't bash the conference. We were at a less than ideal security conference in Manizales, Colombia. And it was not a whole lot to do in the town, but it was this very small, beautiful town in the mountains, and they are actually one of the world's biggest exporters of coffee. A lot of the coffee in the world comes from that area. But we were walking around looking for lock shops, and we ran into. Can you find it on Google Maps? The lock shop.
If I don't have any internet that I would trust out here.
Oh, all right.
Well,
there's that. So
I'll work on it.
We found a really cool lock shop that we kind of tried talking to them in Deve's broken Spanish, and
broken motherfucker.
Well, it was pretty good, but mine's pretty broken.
No hay nada tan imperfecto como mi español.
There you go. So we ran into a gentleman who hand makes a lot of locks because getting a lot of high-quality cylinders from abroad was so difficult. He had all around his shop just raw metal stock that he would mill cylinders out of. He would take long spools of wire and cut pins that he would use in his locks. And one of the things that he had in his display case, we're going to go back to the dock camera, if we can. So I'm going to hold it up, and then I'm going to switch to this. It's really massive. So what this is, and actually, we can't get this any higher, unfortunately, can we?
You can tilt it.
Oh, yeah. Zooming might help. Thank you. That's good enough. So here's a lock where he took a basic what is that? There we go.
There's a magnifier.
So he took a very basic lock, and then he built around it this sheet metal riveted box with a makeshift strong box on the front with a tubular lock of his own design. So I'm gonna try to find the key for it here and show you what the keys look like. And what this is a coin-operated bathroom lock. So we have some coins, we have some keys. Hopefully these are the right keys for this lock. Let's try this one. Yay. Yeah, so here are the keys. So there's two keys. There's one for the upper lock and one for the coin box. And in the top, there's a slot cut out of it. And this has been shipped around a couple times, so we're gonna hopefully hopefully it works correctly. So right now, this is the exterior. You can see it doesn't really turn, but if I insert a coin into the top and then try to turn it, hopefully it will work. And of course,
Is the inside locked too?
the inside might be locked. Let me see here.
So yeah, he thought this whole thing through. Like,
Let me
imagine if
fidget
you're-
with this for a second
Yeah.
and
Imagine
unscrew
if
the
you're
shipping
a
damage.
like a restaurant patron. He sold these to bars and restaurants that wanted to like make up for people like using up all the bathroom supplies. So, it just all right. So put this on your door. It will retrofit in with your existing door. I'll come install it. And patrons could come and, you can't operate the door. It had a clutching mechanism, essentially. The tailpiece wouldn't engage correctly unless there was a coin. There we go. Now that drops the coin into the holding
Apparently
box.
I can't tilt it, otherwise it misbehaves. But so right now I can't really turn it, and hopefully it's gonna work now that people are watching. I'm gonna drop that in there. And now I was able to turn it a full 360 degrees, go into the restroom, and he designed it in such a way where if it was locked on the back side,
Like someone's in the bathroom.
Right, someone who dropped in a coin would not be able to enter, but it would still hold their coin until they exited, and then it would then drop the coin. And he did this all by hand. And I'm gonna unscrew the coin box with the lock. The lock on the
literally.
front here actually is connected to or welded to a milled bolt that goes all the way through to this large steel plate on the back. And the way you undo it is you put in the key and then you literally unscrew the front of the lock. Oh yeah, so there's that. So here's that, and and this is all hand. He doesn't have a CNC mill or anything. Like, this is all really like old milling equipment.
Yeah. We saw these like cabinets. They like in restrooms, there'll sometimes be dispensers for like condoms and crap like that. And we saw them in the back of his shop. We're like, oh, do you service them too? And he's like, no, they're my raw materials for the sheet metal. Like, I refold them. He had a metal folding like machine. That's how. Yeah, he would just salvage stuff.
There are a couple McDonald's that have either coin tokens, they get a register, or a digit keypad, and it's on your receipt. So unless you buy something, you don't get the 4-digit code.
Yeah.
So people are mentioning there are modern implementations of the restricted toilet in some merchants, either.
Huh. That's actually extremely common just about anywhere in New York City.
Really?
Yeah.
So here's another cylinder that he made. So this looks like a regular cylinder, but if you look closely, you'll see it's very plain looking, and the reason it's plain looking is because he milled this out of raw brass bar stock. There's no markings on it. And what he does, again, all the pins inside this lock were cut from brass spools of wire. And the keys he buys, but then he modifies. So there's like that big slot cut into it. That's because he designed his lock to require that slot. So the key is the only thing he doesn't make from scratch. And then he cuts that slot to make it his quote-unquote keyway. And then, he'll cut the bitting into it. And he makes these to use on motorcycles. So this is his invention in that area. And he is known as like the guy to go to if you want a lock on your home or your motorcycle that is unique. So a lot of locksmiths buy keyways that are unique to them. This man makes it from whole cloth.
He charges. The question was, what does he charge? He charges more than the local market locksmiths do for
Yes,
some products.
yeah. For the area, he is considered a premium locksmith, of course. By our standards, of course, it was very cheap, but that's not the same thing. I don't remember how much we spent on these locks.
We spent probably a couple hundo just to
We bought a lot.
Yeah, we bought a lot.
We
of
bought
stuff.
a lot of locks.
By the way, also Carlos completely deaf. Has been, and he was trained by another locksmith who also was deaf and didn't speak.
What was his?
Carlos El Sordo. Carlos the Deaf. Right?
Yeah.
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 And so I know my Spanish is good, my sign language is marginal, and a mix of those plus our friend Matthias, like filling in the gaps, and then his wife would sign if we needed that. Like, it was amazing to watch. We have a whole interview documented, and it was really, really wild, but it was so fun. And one of these days, maybe next Hope, beyond this one, if Hotel Penn is fallen down by then, I don't know, but maybe we'll show you. We have this video of just us talking to Carlos in his shop and asking, like, literally he makes his own pins from bar stock. Like, he makes to talk about it when I say that loud, he's like the quintessential hacker. He really has hacked this thing together
out of
necessity.
Completely out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. The necessity was the market needed better locks. They were unable to, for whatever reason, either financial or otherwise, obtain better locks from the outside. The resource that he did have was time and a willingness to work with equipment and machinery, so you make it work, you know? And what was really cool, and we're trying to find the photos, and
I got like complete turd ball internet here. I got
right now
nothing
we
going
can't.
on.
I apologize. We took all these photos, and then years and years later, we went back and looked up his lock shop on Google Maps. And when the Google Maps van had gone by, he was standing outside of his lock shop in the same uniform, wearing the same coveralls, which was just really satisfying to see.
Yeah. We got no fucking prayer.
If we find, we're going to keep looking, or I'm going to keep looking anyway. If we find it, we'll let you know. But yeah, I thought it was really, really cool. And the point of this, of course, is not to make a lock that is unpickable or anything. Clearly, the quality of the components can't really compare to what we're normally used to here. But I think in terms of drive and ingenuity, I have not seen a lot of other locks out there that were designed in this way, and I just find that really interesting. I hope you guys found it interesting too.
Is there any type of coin return, or what if the wrong coin gets in there?
That's a good question. The question was, is there any type of coin return if the wrong coin goes in? So I think he dealt with that in two ways. If the coin was too big, it physically would not fit in the slot, in theory. And if it was too small, the wrong coin, it would just drop through to the return and not be held in the catch. Now, I'm sure their tolerance for that was probably not super great, but if you're like counterfeiting coins to use in bathroom locks, like, you've also invested some drive and some resources into that, and maybe you get to go pee without paying. That's your prize.
Right on. Thank you, Babak, for bringing all this from the tool.
Did you guys enjoy that? I hope that you did. And we already know that the next time around, German puzzle lock.
So I'm going to switch to this laptop again and the camera that we've got up here.
We'd switch away from the dock cam, back to the laptop.
So here we are. This is going to be a complete shout out to Kenny and the other folk in the Tool chapter in Portland. Kenny, if you guys don't know him, he's Rom Hat. He's just probably the sweetest guy ever, and virtually impossible to cook food for or give him a meal. In fact, on his website, there's just a list of it's called Ways to Kill Kenny because he's like allergic to everything. But as is often the case, people who are so put upon by fate wind up just coping by being so charming and delighted at life. And Kenny is no exception to that. He's just honestly the sweetest guy you could ever imagine. He was out with us at tour camp. He goes to Burning Man with you, right, man?
Kenny?
Yeah, Kenny's a burner, I think.
He does go.
Yeah,
it's a very large event, so.
But he's of that mindset. He just wants to make things that are cool and creative, and he made this using a laser cutter with acrylic and colored plastic. This is a teaching aid that simulates both a standard pinned lock and a security pinned lock. And if you are imagine you are out camping, Burning Man, tour camp, you name it, and someone says, "Oh, is this lock picking?" But you don't have slides, you don't have visual aids and a projector. This is all you need. I mean, you can literally put pressure on the plug, and you can try to push the key pin until the plug turns. and show people like, well, there's a spring and a driver pin, and this is how it resets. And
Super cool.
And what about spool pins? I've heard of those.
The
Well, this is what a spool pin does.
This is the best demo of a spool pin
Yeah.
that I have seen, because the counter rotation is so apparent. So
Yeah.
again, it binds, right? Now you're stuck on a spool. You can very clearly see you're stuck on a spool. Is that on camera?
Yeah.
All right.
Here we go.
And as you push up, why don't you push
I'll
up
push.
on it? You can see it counter, sorry, I'll go slowly. It counter rotates. And that's something that is it's very hard to tell when you do an animation sometimes, but seeing like the physical pieces actually force you to counter rotate the plug back to push it past that point where the spool is catching. That's really, really cool. So.
And in his very like non-wasteful vegan kind of way, you can tell like he reused both distinguishing the plug and the shell, but he flips the pieces on this side. Like it's the most efficient way of cutting up this plastic, and it's just delightful. He makes these like he'll make these for you if you reach out to him.
It's squarely in the category of the kind of thing where you look at it and you go, oh yeah, laser cutter plastic, easy. But like, did anyone in here make one? Like I didn't. Like I didn't put the time in to make one. So I mean, some people have. But it takes some time. It takes effort, and he did a great job at it.
Yeah, so we're super proud of him. And what was their question right here?
Does he share that design?
So the question was, does he share the design? Knowing Kenny, I'd be kind of surprised if he didn't. I know that a lot of people are just so busy. They're like, oh, I can't make one of those. Can you make? He's like, yeah, I'll make. Here's the cost of the parts. Like, so he will make them available that way. Or I'm thinking we will ask him if the design is shared. It strikes me as it's likely. But in general, who like would want one of these if you could make one? Yeah, we will find a way. We'll tweet it from Tool's Twitter or something. But if you ever see Kenny, we can't say buy him a beer or buy him pretty much anything that goes in his face because it will kill him. But give him a very warm smile and a hug and thank him for us. So that's that. You can show something you didn't have time for.
Oh, well, I basically showed everything, so I don't...
In case, who missed the talk this morning? A lot of people missed it.
Okay,
Pick
so...
your favorite lock.
You might not know this, but there were people outside that weren't let in because it was at capacity.
Oh, wow, that makes me feel a lot
We were just informed
better.
by the security had locked the room when because it was at capacity. So there were people who missed the talk because you wanted to get in and couldn't get in. All right.
All right. Thanks
Thank you
for
watching the
thanks for
webcast.
watching.
Yeah.
I really appreciate anyone who took the effort to come and watch my little thing. So, is there anything in particular that you'd like to see, or just something that I think is interesting?
Free rotating lock.
Okay, the free rotating locks. Yes. All right. Here's the free rotating lock. This is a padlock. Just give me a second. Let me get a wrong key. Here we are. We have a wrong key right here. This is the padlock version. This is the 750K. And basically, this is
Angry face lock.
The angry face lock. Yeah, if you look at it, yeah, it's got one tooth, and it's like angry at you. So this is the wrong key. So anything that puts like stress. So basically they were talking about how in order to pick a lock, you have to put stress on the system. This doesn't let you do that because any stress or force that you, turning force that you put on the plug causes it to turn freely.
To clarify, it doesn't let you do that externally.
Yeah.
There might be a way to apply tension internally with a special tool.
Yeah.
But with traditional tools from the outside, there's no easy way to tension or apply pressure to the internals of the lock.
And that's not just a profile plate. That's the plug spinning
that's
around.
The whole plug. So there's no way to, if you stick anything in there, you're not tensioning it. So if I stick this whole thing in there, it's still not tensioning anything. So only the correct key will cause it to engage the back of the lock and open the lock. Yeah. Well, it doesn't want to work now. Oh, here we go. Yay. Well, with Chinese things, sometimes they stop working, for 2 times.
It's cheap enough. You just buy another one.
Yeah. Oh, well, this one.
He wasn't in all the way, so.
Yeah. But well, I have a cam lock that does the same thing.
One thing that I really enjoy. This one doesn't say top security on it.
Oh yeah.
Damn.
The top security locks, which sorry.
One thing that struck me about your talk
Yes.
is the Chinese grading scale for locks.
Yeah.
So here in the U.S. we have not great ones. We have like ANSI grade 1, grade 2, or UL listed locks.
Yeah.
They have a letter grade system. So
they have a
there's
letter grade system.
A, B, B plus.
Yeah, so as you go down, it gets better. So B plus is better than B, and B is better than A. So basically when a lock says top security on it, you can be sure it goes at the very top of the scale where A is. So that's what they really mean when they say top security on it. So, and you'll know a lot of locks that over here or somewhere, they say top security on them. So basically what they're trying to say is it goes on the top of the scale. It's before A, which, yes, very good.
Or it's hardened, right? Like.
Oh yes, also about hardening, I said that it is easier to stamp hardened on the shackle than it is to harden the shackle. So there's that. And
that's the lock equivalent of like putting one of those security or alarm signs on your home without actually having an alarm system. You're like, oh, it'll deter them.
Well, it does deter them to an extent, until, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is...
it makes them go get slightly larger ones.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so this is, this lock, although it's a free spinning lock, they did not bother to put hardened on the shackle at all because it's not hardened. It seems not a lot of locks are actually hardened in China. And on the thing about smiley faces, if you didn't see this already, we've got the this actual smiley face, like that. Oh,
there we
it's
go.
such a cute little lock. It's also free spinning, so the whole thing turns without any drag whatsoever, and only the correct key will actually turn the back of the lock. But the way I like it is because whenever I like to think of it, so when a criminal comes up to your door, this lock is going to be smiling at them, and it's going to be like, ha ha ha, you can't get in.
I just like to think that the lock is hungry.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. No. Yeah. So the lock is hungry. So yeah, these two. We got the happy face, and we got the cousin of the happy face. So there's that. They don't really. I think it's just to hold. Well, they're
Question was,
totally.
are those little dimples, those eyes, are they there for any reason?
I think it's just to hold. So like the whole plug is brass, but this little top piece is steel. So I think the two dimples hold the.
So they're purposeful, but I think their position was chosen with aesthetic in mind, probably.
Yeah,
right?
I guess they wanted to laugh at all the criminals who are gonna try and get into the lock.
Right on. Well, big hand for Urban Hawk. This was his first time presenting at anytime.
I haven't thrown enough of these into the audience, by the way, so we're gonna have like a pick break here. Yeah.
In the back.
Yeah, here. Why don't you throw it? Oh, by the windows, yeah. Oh, I can't throw apparently.
We are not liable for any
to the right, off to the right, off to the right.
Throw that 5-pounder.
And they might be cheap, but they do work. I was playing with them.
They are functional. They're not completely useless, but.
Heading towards you, just duck.
Last two.
We got more for later. At the end.
Okay,
All right, hit the back. If you can hit the back, that'd be great. Lady Merlin's going to walk back and try to get some of you folks that are patiently sitting all the way in back.
Was there anything more from the audience? In fact, there was one gentleman who had a photograph of a lock, right? We could do that unless there's more mechanical locks. Is somebody, you're holding something up. I can't see what's happening. Sure, whatever, it's fine.
German puzzle lock.
So here we go.
That's the best. The reason I'm waiting on the German puzzle lock till the end, or close to it, is that I'm going to give the audience an option to get a spoiler, so I can open the lock on camera. But then, if anyone else ever runs into that lock, they won't have the enjoyment of discovering it. So anyone who doesn't want to see it opened can leave, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the best way to handle this. We'll take a vote. We'll figure it out. But we'll get to that.
All right, there are 4 pictures.
These are 2 of my locks, not just photos. Okay.
All right. So, would you rock the mic and tell us what we're seeing here? Here, hang on. White balance for the win. Come on. Oh, you know what? I got the. Hey. What? Oh.
Too far.
What?
Jiminy Christmas. There we are.
So I know what it is, but do you guys know what it is?
No.
This is a sleigh maker. Oh, I know what that is. That is if you don't know how to, you better know how to pulse dial, right? Yes, sir.
That's a rotary. Yep.
So if you can't hear, that is a rotary phone, which for the young ones in the room, you used to have to turn a large wheel on the face of a phone.
Which meant that if you had to dial 911, you might have been dead by the time you got.
We're at 2,600 here. People just press the hanger and dial that way.
So
the
yes,
lock
this
is
is
completely
a rotary phone lock, though.
If
This
you've
is what that
never
is.
Dealt with any of those? We've got a few down on the mezzanine. Just.
There's actually rotary phones downstairs.
Yes, I know. I installed them.
Which way should I swipe on this?
It's a separate album, so.
All right.
Is that a tailpiece of something? What is? Oh, look at you.
Model T Ford steering column.
Oh,
What?
really? No, that's not.
What is that?
That does look like.
No, it's a boot for a 1929 to 31 Ford Model T. It would go around the tire, and the point end, you'd lock it around the wheel. So if someone did drive away the car, it would clear the fender, but it would leave a mark on the road as you drove away.
Are you fucking kidding me?
That's amazing.
Did you all hear that? So.
Yeah.
This is a wheel. This is a.
Sir, can you explain
I
at the
want you to
mic,
say
please?
that at the mic.
Yeah, thank you. No, he's just.
For the old fucks that are in the room, this is a 1929 to 31 Ford Model T or A lock. It would clamp around the wheel and as an anti-theft device. So if someone did drive the car away, the point on the right side would leave a mark on the concrete or the asphalt as the car drove away.
So it would be like, boom, boom. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you'd like follow the car.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And you can read, if you want to pull up, make it bigger, you can see what it says, anti-theft signal.
Oh, wow.
Auto theft signal system, Chapman Company. And is there a date on that one?
Oh, wow. This is great.
You read it, Ed.
For arrest and conviction as is a no reward. Someone with eyes that aren't as old as mine.
It's a reward for finding somebody tampering with the
$100 reward.
Probably issued by Champion. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. For arrest and conviction as a something of any person operating this car or tampering with this signal. Basically, if you contribute to the arrest of someone who was messing with this or stole a car with this, you get $100 paid by the company. That's pretty cool.
And the Chapman Lock Company used to have a cylinder underneath the
here we
bottom of
go.
the dashboard that you would push in and it would lock the hood so you couldn't pop the hood to hotwire a car.
Los Angeles, California. Patented August 25th, 1914.
That is awesome.
That is one of the coolest locks.
Thank you so much. It still works today. Badass.
That was super cool.
Yeah. What's next? How are we doing on time? Anybody who's got a?
We got about 20 minutes left.
All right. Ray had some more to say. If you wanted to hear that, or what else
We
interests you?
also have some Austrian high security.
Ooh.
Anyone want to see that?
We have a question, I believe.
I'd like to request to see the Salaki again for the people that didn't see the Chinese lock show earlier.
Oh yeah. Okay. Do you want to do that?
No. Come on, Encore Man.
Okay. It's unfortunate that a lot of you didn't get to see that. But, okay. So which particular one do you want to see?
What was the name of it? The Slocky?
Oh, that one, yes. Okay, let me get that one out. So if you're interested in this stuff, I'll mostly be down in the Tool Lockpicking Village area. If you want to find me there, I can talk to you about anything. You can come and play around with these locks. I have no problem with that. Because they're locks, they're indestructible, except they're also Chinese locks, so which means they're destructible. So yeah, the fact that it's Chinese negates the fact. So, all right. Thanks. I mean, it looks pretty normal. It doesn't really have much to it, except for the fact that it has 48 wafers. Now, keep in mind that a regular lock on your door will have 5 pins on it. A high security one might have 6 or 7, and a very good high security lock with like special stuff in it might have like, at most,
14,
14
12, yeah.
or 15. But so they've gone ahead and they were like, well, I'm not gonna just double it. I'm gonna like quadruple the amount of stuff I can fit into this lock. And
The question up front of the audience was, does the
Yes.
company make razors?
I don't know. Maybe they do. As I've said earlier, yeah, sometimes these companies change what they make. So one day they'll be making wagons, and the next day they'll be making locks, and the next day they might be
Wagons.
making. Yeah, that's an example.
What's interesting to me is that most of the time in the Western world, the reason why you don't see locks with high component counts is because of service issues. So from a service standpoint, no one wants to take apart a lock that has, that many small, tiny, itty-bitty pieces. So oftentimes, locks that have extremely high component counts, like some of the Fichet locks from France and such, are sealed. They're not designed to be serviced. They're not designed to be master keyed. They're made mechanically in the factory, with an automated system. They're sealed, and then they're never serviced again. So this is, what's that? Do you throw them out?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
when you're
do.
done with them, you just replace the whole thing, whole
Yeah,
kit and caboodle.
the locks are so cheap that institutions don't even bother with master keying. Whenever someone leaves, they just pull the lock out, throw it away, and buy a new one. It's kind of wasteful, but I mean, it's cheaper than rekeying the lock, and it takes less effort. So yeah, this lock is just amazingly dense with its stuff that's in it. And I was tempted to take it apart, but I decided against it because, as I've said this already, if I do take it apart, there will no longer be 48 pieces in it.
Well, that's why you need 4 locks, remember? The first one to destroy.
And I only have one of them, so
Yep.
if I do that, this lock will never work again.
Yeah, these are some really, really cool keys there.
Yeah, they're stainless steel.
They have, does everyone see that groove in the key? The little wavy line? Oftentimes, a lot of people call these laser track keys. Who has an automobile where they've been told they have a laser key or something special? There's nothing to do with lasers anywhere in the manufacture or use
Well, sometimes
or
the
sale.
keys are cut with a laser. Is that? And
They're
that's it?
milled.
Oh,
they're milled. Yeah, they're not. They're not
Alright.
actually they're not actually even laser cut. They're just it's way faster and just as accurate and cheaper to mill it. But laser is one of those where it's like the lock equivalent of cyber, right? You put it in front of something and it's immediately better,
The marketing
right?
department used the laser pointer.
Right.
There you go.
So a funny thing about poor quality Chinese locks, which I forgot to mention this in the presentation that I did. So this will be new stuff. So there is a company in China that manufactures tons and tons, like thousands, 10,000s of the same type of padlock. And so there's not that much of a key difference, and added with poor quality, it's not very good quality. So, and you know that institutions such as train stations, airports, schools, prisons even, they all use the cheapest lock they can find. So basically what happened is that one of the train stations in Beijing, the main one I think, Beijing railway station, it was closed, and there was some guy outside waiting for the station to open, and he sees this padlock on the gate, and he's like, wait a moment, that looks like my padlock. And he takes out his key and puts it in the lock, and lo and behold, it opens. And then, unlike a sensible person who would just lock it back up and not talk about it, he went inside and was promptly like, well, like tackled by police and stuff.
There was a situation.
There was a situation, yes.
There was an incident.
And this was all over the news, but the next time I went back to Beijing railway station, it was the same lock. So they didn't learn anything from their little problem over there.
You sure you didn't try the key again?
I didn't really have a key back then, but anyway.
China is not a country that I would fuck around in. Just
Yeah,
saying.
I know.
Just saying.
Actually, the thing is with China is that if you don't do anything too major, they won't really get you for that or anything.
Yeah, but they get to decide what's too major.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Are lockpicks legal in China?
They are highly super duper illegal. Like if they ever catch you with lockpicks, you're like going to jail forever or something.
So that's the bar for major, by the way. We just learned it.
So yeah, unfortunately, lockpicks are illegal. And well, I'm sure the Chinese government would think otherwise. So yeah. Any other questions, or should I just talk about stuff, or I should give it to someone else?
I think we should.
I should give it to someone else.
We have about 15 minutes before the scheduled end of this marathon panel. Is everyone doing all right?
Yeah.
So.
All right, thanks.
So I think we have room for maybe just a couple more things. We have some Austrian locks that Night Owl can talk about. And we also have I think people really wanted to see the German puzzle locks as well at some point. Also, just because I don't know if we're going to have time for it, but it's really effing cool if you're into electronic locks. I really encourage you to talk to Ray at some point if we have time for it.
We can do a short.
You can do a short one? You want to talk about that really quick right now? Or how long would it take?
I can do how fast you want.
Okay, you want to do a quick overview of the other thing that you wanted to talk about? Just so we can still have time for the EVA and the...
And then we do Austrian and then German.
Yeah, perfect. And we'll round it out. I can... Yeah.
I'll stand.
We'll all stand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the other one I announced to talk about is the actual attacks we did on the Nogue. As I said, it's still unfixed, so we don't go into too much detail. But what I would like people to do is play more with Bluetooth Low Energy, so a few infos on what you need to do that. One thing is, as I said, it's easy to sniff. And what I found out is that that's actually a very common chip is this NRF51 something, so it's called NRF51 series. And there's a sniffer firmware by Nordic for it. So if you have a dev board with this chip, you can flash this firmware on it. This is a basic dev board for this chip. And after you flash the firmware, you have an USB serial thing which sends out data, and there's a Wireshark plugin. You find it on other fruits. They have a sniffer like that. So it's actually very easy, low entry to do that. So we listened to the communication with a Nogue lock. And fortunately, we also already saw this in the firmware. They use AES crypto on top of Bluetooth Low Energy. So they don't trust Bluetooth Low Energy already. And AES crypto is secure, as we all know. I mean, it's 128-bit. What could go wrong? The thing I will disclose here is because it's not very secret. You will find it in the app. If you decompile the app, Android's app are quite easy to decompile. There's some code line saying AES key init, bracket, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 15. And we thought it's not possible, but it's the default key they use to encrypt the communication.
I'm curious, was that the default in the datasheet?
No, I think it's just 1 to 15. It's what you put in during testing and then forget to change it when you release. But don't laugh too loud, as it's in the source code anyway. It's not so, doesn't matter so much. Nicely, they use this key only to exchange a session key, and this session key they create with more fiddling. But if you understand the firmware and decompile it, you still find out. So what I would like to, two things I want you to play with Bluetooth LE, and the other thing is, if someone listens to you opening your Nogue with the current firmware, you should change your code afterwards. Because it's possible to get your code from the air. We've been working with them, and they changing the algorithm, and the bike lock which is coming out already is supposed to have the new one. But currently there's no new firmware for this, so change your keys after someone might have been listening. That's the advice I wanted to leave.
That's
from
great
this
advice.
talk. And play with this stuff. It's really has to be done before too much of this is all around us.
Awesome.
So moving over to the next country over. If we can get this camera, there we go.
Yeah.
Excellent. This is the newest addition to my collection. This is from the Austrian country Eva. It is their magnetic code system lock. And it's a little bit tight when it turns. It's not super smooth. Well, it is super smooth. It's just a little bit tight.
In that lock, it's tight. Normally, the cylinder itself is ridiculously smooth.
And what you can see here is that on the top and bottom of the key, you have these little sort of wavy ridges on the sides, and then you have these 4 discs set in the blade. Anyone want to guess what those discs are? There you go.
Magnets?
You heard it up front, but if you didn't guess, those are magnets.
So this is a cutaway
Yeah.
that Bobek has helpfully supplied. And here you can see the 4 rotors that are engaged by those magnets.
And it's important to point out, when you say rotors, when you think of a key, if you've ever seen any key that has a magnet, you're like, oh, clearly this is a magnet, so maybe this is north, which means this must be south, like on the other side of the key. No, these are radially magnetized discs. So there are 8 differential zones, discrete zones of magnetism around both sides of all 4 magnets on this key. So it's unfreaking there. Yeah, those, you stick the key in, and as you're gonna see when we zoom in, it actually touches the pads on these rotors and they spin.
Okay.
A little better.
Up a little higher.
I like my camera, but there you go.
Good.
Good.
There you go, good.
All right, so we're gonna do some
There we
teamwork
go.
here.
Whoa!
It's fucking cool, right?
Yeah. How fucking great is that?
I was gonna watch that all day.
Wow.
Yeah.
GIF. We want a GIF.
So yeah, those are 8 rotors, because there's on each side of the key.
It's not symmetric. It's
Non-symmetric, and each of which has 8 positions. So you do the permutation math. Not to mention, if you look down the keyway, it's a fucking sealed system, because magnetic energy radiates out through the plug. Like, you don't have to touch those rotors. There's nothing in the keyway to even effing touch.
So the term that you're looking for those magnets are polymagnets. There's a company that goes by that name that actually you can create a design of what you would like on an object that you want magnetized, and they will actually make that for you. They've used that technology to come up with shocks and struts in automobiles for the company Sachs. I don't know if they actually produce them, but they use that for like BMWs, Audis,
Really?
high-end
So like
performance.
magnetic damping in the shocks?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
But same thing. I don't know if you can really do that on that small sense of a scale, but they do have some demos that you can order from their site that has the same principle on a larger scale.
That's
Really,
awesome.
really cool stuff. And if you wanted to look that up, there's a Smarter Everyday episode that covers that exact
That's right.
thing.
Who follows Smarter Every Day on YouTube? Oh yeah, dude, Destin is freaking awesome.
We
right?
were Deviant and I were fortunate enough to get a factory tour of Eva. What was it 5-6 years
Oh,
ago?
gosh,
It was
yeah,
a
that
while
was a while
ago.
ago.
It was like we were watching art being made, because the whole factory was building these beautiful locks, and we saw like the one machine that made the keys, and it was pretty sizable. It was probably started at this end of the table and maybe went 3/4 of the way. and
Roughly, yeah.
It was pretty big.
It was the machine we weren't allowed to take pictures of.
Yeah, definitely not.
How many pictures did you take?
None. You gotta respect your host.
Yeah, but we have to remember one thing. These magnets are really difficult to produce because they have different magnetization of both sides. It's one pile and it has different magnets. We tried to copy these keys, or we wanted to copy these keys, and it was, of course, with home material you can't do that. So we ordered smaller magnets in China, They produce everything you want from them. And we did put 2 discs on top of each other, glued them together, and I think at HAR 2009 or something we did a talk, and you can copy these keys this way. EFA was quite not so amused about it, but it's not a big problem because still you have to order magnets from China, especially for that.
The equipment these days for the poly magnets is probably 1/4 of the size that you mentioned, so it's something that could fit a lot smaller than it used to be. So that's probably viable if you had access to that, but only 1 or 2 companies have that. So.
All right. So I think German puzzle lock.
German puzzle lock? Spoiler alert, if you don't want to learn the secret, go ahead and leave now.
Well, no, we'll let you know when the spoiler, if first of all, let's talk about the locks first, and then we'll see if people want a spoiler or not. So the quick backstory is, do we have, can we switch back to this camera? What do we have to do, Dave?
Alt-tab.
Alt-tab? Yep. Yay. All right. There's a box. What's in the box? The quick backstory to this is there is a gentleman, excellent machinist in Germany whose name is Rainer Popp. And Rainer Popp makes a series of locks that he calls Popp locks. And they are extremely well-crafted, well-machined puzzle locks. Locks that are not designed to be opened in the way you think they're going to open, but have some sort of trick to it. Who's played with puzzle locks before? Right?
There's some
Most of them, you have to either hit it or shake it a certain way or do something silly, and they're fun, but they're not quite like this. And he releases one design every year to year and a half. He makes a limited number, and once they're sold, they're gone. He doesn't make any more. So once I learned about this, we started making sure that we were able to get some every time a new one came out, because we wanted to be able to share that with the community and not have the locks locked away in some safe. Unfortunately, we have also learned that because he makes them principally for the puzzle collector community, they are fairly fragile. So we don't really hand them out to play with too much. But once I can figure out how to take them apart and service them, we'll be able to allow more people to actually play with them and not worry about them getting damaged. But we're going to open this one first. And if you're interested in seeing pictures of the previous ones, you can go to poplock with 2 P's, P-O-P-P, lock.com. And this is the first one. This is the T8 lock that we got. We were not able to get any of the 7 locks that preceded this one yet. And the first thing you'll notice when you open the box is that there's this little slip on the top, and it says, "No hitting, shaking, force, or gravity needed to open this lock." And he says that so you don't start bashing the thing against tables or, he's telling you there's no cheap tricks. You don't have to worry about that.
There's no floating element or anything like that. A lot of puzzle locks, you have to turn them over and something drops out of position.
So this, is the whole thing on camera?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. There we go. So if we could, right about there, yeah. So this is the first lock. This is the T8, and you can see there's no keyway. There is a little, can we see the cat? I don't know how visible that is.
Just describe it.
It's a line drawing of an angry-looking cat, right there. Let me just
You can see it, I think.
Yeah, you can kind of see
They're from the internet. They know cats.
Yeah. There we go. There we go. So this part here spins, and this thing goes in, and there's some dots, and that's it. And you're all right, you got to figure out how it opens from there. So that's the T8. And the next one that we got, we're gonna come to that one. And these are pretty heavy. How heavy would you say this is?
300 grams for 400.
What is that in freedoms?
What is that in freedoms?
I would say about 2 cheeseburgers, 3 cheeseburgers.
American chicken cheeseburgers, obviously.
Boy, yeah, we
So this is the T9. This was considerably more expensive. Same rules apply to all of his locks, and it is beautiful, right? Like this is a gorgeous piece of machining. And it comes with this key that does not what you think it does. It'll just sit there and spin, and nothing will happen. And this was Steve. How long did it take you to open this lock? It took me like over a week or 2 weeks on and off, like playing with it.
Yeah, I have not opened that lock yet.
Okay. It takes a number of steps, and this is so far one of my most favorite designs from him. This is the T9 lock, and the last one I want you to share in the experience that I had when I ordered these and I opened them up. So these all are packed in this like shredded cardboardy stuff, which is fine, looks nice. And then I feel like he's like, I'm going to screw with people on two fronts. One, I'm going to make my locks hard to open. Two, I'm going to use the world's worst packing material. This is raw styrofoam pellets. Like it just gets everywhere. So
it's the AIDS of packing materials.
So this, God damn it. God damn it. Like,
Why did you put it back in that box?
with apologies to the next speaker. All right, so this is brand new. Like, I haven't opened this one before.
Unboxing.
Have you read the note?
Yeah, the note says the same thing. Yep.
No unwrapping is needed too?
No unwrapping is needed. No, some unwrapping is definitely needed. So here's our key.
Oh.
We're over?
Oh.
What?
Well, come by Lockpick Village then. Guess you won't. If you want to see a spoiler, come by Lockpick Village. Actually, who wants to see a really fast spoiler? All right. We're going to do a spoiler for this one, T8.
Which I was the first to open, I think.
Yes, I believe so. No, I opened it by accident first. So
open
anyway,
open,
we gotta talk fast. So this thing here, it looks like one piece, but if you actually hold this and unscrew this part, right? So that's the first trick that he calls it. And now it just sits there and spins. You're like, well, what does that do now? Then you pull on it and you notice it doesn't come out until you get it into the right position. And then it does this. And mind you, like, you got to discover all this by accident. So we're talking hours of work here already. You guys saw it in 5 seconds. So that comes in and out, but again, this still doesn't do anything. And the last part, and this is really cool, there's like pins, machining pins and stuff that keeps this all secure and closed. And this looks like a normal machining pin, but they're actually holes that lead into a chamber. And if you cover the holes and then pull this out, it's an air piston. So the first time I opened this, it was by accident because I happened to be holding it like this, and I'm just fiddling with it, and it popped open. I'm like, what did I do? It's open, but what did I do?
Yeah,
and
then it's stuck open.
Yeah. Everyone who's opened this lock before always opens it by accident the first time, and so they bring it to me up. They're like, I got it. I'm like, cool, close it. And then their face just falls because they realize they have no idea how they opened it. But anyway, thank you. Music is playing.
Yeah, that was an awesome panel. You're going to clean that up, right?
You're welcome. You're not going to be a pain in my ass.
That looks so terrible.